"100 trans voices, 100 trans stories. Welcome to Trans Vegas." A rare moment in theatre. People of trans experience gathered in masses to hear stories by us for us. This year, we amplify the black trans voices. The "this is how lockdown COVID-19 has impacted me" voices. And the "I was a part of the revolution" voices. Birthed in 2019, this artistic festival took up space at the Manchester Royal Exchange Theatre. As the fight for trans rights, equality, and safety continues, so will this project. We are visible, and we are telling our own stories. Welcome to 100 Trans Voices, presented by Trans Creative. I am Mr. Black Branson. The revolution will be televised.
Awakening on trams, buses, streets cascading, memories all smushed up into one, punctured with holy remnants of having been here before. Dysphoric ripples, moving fantastically, being removed from toilets, fitting in new ways, new human rights, no human rights, I'm human right, tongue-tied. Eye catches childish spirits, just wanting a job, up, so high. I'm upright, honey, you are fabulous. Aging in magnificent ways, finding others, ease it in, take your time back. Easy now, aim right, fight, kick back, go, dive. Do you, be free, transcend.
What happens when the fight is over? What happens when the fight is over and then you now know that I am trans? What happens then? What happens then? I still have the voice sometimes in my head, not sometimes, but I could call on that voice of my own father looking at me and saying, if I wasn't at my grandmother's house, he would be kicking and punching me right now when he found out that I liked women. Even then, there's that little slight wanting to protect your own people. And that's a conflict. That's an internal conflict because you hate me, I want to protect you, but you try to kill me. So why? Why should I lay down my life? Why should I lay down my life? Why should I use my voice, my platform? Why? When you hate me. And if I go, and I can't even say, let me call on my trans brothers and sisters as well all the time, because it tends to be the same goddamn thing. If you're not poly, pansexual, if you're not gender fluid, you're not gender neutral, if you identify with the binary, I feel the ostracization even within that same community. I feel it like, you're too straight. I'm too straight. So it's this, you want war. Some of us just want fucking peace. Some of us will fight. You know, don't get it twisted, we'll fight. But, for fuck's sake,
My name is Oscar. I'm a transmasculine, non-binary person, and I practice Qigong. Not a lot of people have heard about Qigong, but basically it's a Chinese practice. Translated, it means energy work. I've been practicing it since 2003, when my partner and I, at the time, came across a teacher across the corner from where we lived. To begin with, I was both frustrated and fascinated with the practice, which I think is pretty much the case for most people. But I kept coming back. Good teachers and guides are essential. They bring light to the darkness of that space beneath the skin. I was lucky. I kept coming across new teachers who introduced me to more and more depth in the practice. Over time, these practices got me through my addictions, long-term depression, and finally helping me to take the step into transition. This practice helped me work through my traumas, discover things like resilience, awareness, and presence. Bit by bit, work through numbness into feeling and sensations, and trust myself to be present with them and keep functioning. I've learned about being kind to myself, listening to myself, and even learning to love myself, which is something I never thought would ever be possible. I've even learned to make friends with, or at least be more neutral with, experiences like anger and shame. I've learned to listen deeply to myself, because sometimes the biggest needs speak the most softly. And I've even found joy again, which is pretty beautiful. So I've wanted for a long time to share this stuff with people, and I think other queer and trans people like me can really benefit from these practices. So when the pandemic started, my mum did some practices with me online via Skype. I wasn't really sure if it was helpful, but she raved about how good it was, so I decided I'd just pop it up on Instagram. I did some lives, and people have been showing up and saying it's been really helpful, which is kind of amazing.
So that's just some of the thought process, and I am going to keep sitting down, and if I want to sit down and be bloody silent and observe, you call it being silent, I call it observing, I call it licking my wounds from the past fucking decade of you smashing my damn head in. That's what I call it. I call it trying to recover, and I call it going to therapy so I can be a productive person to myself, so I can live some semblance of feeling love and having a family. That's what I call it. You call it me sitting on my ass being silent. That's what I call it rejuvenation.
I didn't really identify with it. But I never ever wanted to get to the other end, to be a male, to live my life as a man. So I guess I'm floating. Happily, on the gender spectrum, definitely beyond halfway towards masculine. Oh yeah, and I'm married. To a man. I found someone who loves me. It's fantastic.
My name is Emily and I am 11 years old. I am transgender. Before I transitioned, I was sad and frustrated all of the time because I felt like no one understood me. I struggled with everything because no one knew the real me and I had to pretend to be someone else. Now, I'm me and I don't have to pretend anymore, and that makes me really happy. People know the real me now. I am Emily, and I am amazing. I care about a lot of things, especially any kind of injustice. I don't like anyone being bullied or hurt because of who they are, because I know how that feels. I want to spend my life making the world a kinder place. I am so excited about my life now. I have lovely friends and lots of things to look forward to. I love playing on my Xbox and playing out with my friends. I love music, and my favourite movie is The Greatest Showman because I feel like it speaks to me. I really love clothes and makeup and painting my nails. I love animals and nature. There are many things that make me who I am. I am very proud to be transgender. I am now free to be the real me, and life is amazing because I am me.
I'm Yuval Topper. I'm 32 years old. I live in Hebden Bridge, although I was born and raised in Jerusalem to a modern Orthodox Jewish family. I'm married to Matan, and we have 3 children. Liri, who's 8.5, Arya, who's 6.5, and Tig, who's 13 months old, all of who I carried and birthed. Tig was born here in England. Liri and Arya were born in Israel, where I was the first transgender man to have babies post-transition. It was quite an interesting experience. I could actually probably enter the Guinness Book of Records as the person who has changed their sex the most times, as originally Israel wouldn't register my children because they said that they could not register 2 biological fathers. And the solution ended up being changing my sex back to female, registering my children, and then returning me to male, which they didn't want to do at first, but ended up doing. So basically when I was born, I was assigned female, and then when I was 20, I changed to male, and when Louis was born, it was changed back to female, and then immediately changed back to male, and again back to female, and then back to male again when Arya was born. It's quite funny actually, because that one of the fears that a lot of cis people seem to have is that transgenders will want to change their sex many times, which I didn't want to. I only was interested in one change, and they actually made me change it so many times. But anyway, so Tig was born here in the UK, and he was born at home. So was Arya, but Tig was born at home, and I decided to have birth photography. I really love birth photography, and I thought it would be a great souvenir, mainly for me and Tig and maybe our family. But when I got the pictures, I really got the sense that they were important, that I wanted them to be out there in the world, that I wanted to change people's minds about birth, pregnancy and birth, and who can give birth, and different bodies and identities. And I didn't feel ready to share them widely when Tig was born. I had quite a lot on my plate with a newborn and negotiating 2 other kids at home, and getting used to being a family of 5, but that kind of stayed at the back of my mind that I wanted them to be out there. And when Tig turned 1, I decided to share them publicly. And I had gone public in the past after Liri and Arya's birth in Israel. And there was... straight after going public, there was a time that I felt more anxious about leaving my home, about being shown in public, kind of thinking who recognized me, what they thought. Some people did have comments, some kind, some not so kind. And actually, my experience of lockdown, which is also the time when I shared Tig's birth photos publicly to the world on Facebook, which received much more interest than I ever imagined. I thought they would receive some interest, but I was expecting something like 1,000 shares maybe, and they actually got almost 250,000 shares, which kind of blew my mind. And all this happened while I was in lockdown, and I think there was something about being in lockdown that kind of made the decision and the coping with sharing something so intimate so widely much easier, because I was staying near to home in Hebden Bridge, where I feel very comfortable, very safe, and I wasn't needing to negotiate the bigger world in Manchester or Leeds or maybe even London, and kind of the difficulty of wandering around and being recognised, or wondering if I'm recognised. So it was quite a positive experience for me, I think, going through those few weeks of exposure while not being as exposed as I would be in a regular time.
25 days on tea. This is my voice, 44 days on tea. This is my voice, 64 days on tea. This is my voice, 120 days on tea. This is my voice, 233 days on tea. This is my voice, 296 days on tea.
Hi, my name's Megan. Pleased to meet you. I'm a white, middle-class child of the 80s. I'm an out and proud trans woman. I transitioned 10 years ago. I've had a lot of ups and downs in that time, but I'm lucky. I know I have privileges. I'm an activist in the trans community, so I'm used to talking about my experience. Over the last 10 years, I've been on TV, in print, online, on stages, giving speeches to big audiences across the country. I'm used to being patted on the back, being told I'm brave, being seen as a role model for the trans community. But I've still got dysphoria. I still have a secret. And now it's time to let go of that secret, to be free. You see, I'm bald. B-A-L-D. Bald. You'd never have known. Trust me, everyone is shocked when I tell them I'm bald. I pay a lot of money to hide the fact. I'm in debt. A lot of debt. It's not cheap keeping a secret. I have more dysphoria about my hair, or the lack of it, than anything else. My voice, my body shape, the childhood I never had. Oh, I'm over that. It's not a problem. But no, not my hair. We never talk about it, do we? There's no articles, no discussions, no visible, bald, trans role models. I think it's a shame. It's so powerful. And it's been like that for me. I've spent a decade looking for the right solution, the answer to finally get my crowning glory. It's funny that, isn't it? We're always told, us women, about our crowning glory. The pressure is real, and yes, I like my hair, although it's not mine. I like the playfulness, the femininity, the way I can style it, the way it shapes my face. I went through so much shame, fear and embarrassment trying to cover my baldness. Going to wig shops, going to hair salons and hair clinics. They have clinics for baldness. I'd never have thought about that. Once, a stylist, on realising I was trans, asked me if I'd had the operation, in inverted commas. It was excruciating, but I had to smile through it. I went for a blow dry, not the 3rd degree. I mean, you get your hair cut and somebody asks what genitals you have? That's crazy. I've tried everything. I've tried weaves, synthetic hair, real hair, take it off, stick it down. I've tried the lot. It stopped me exercising because I couldn't bear the heat and the sweat and the smell. I've melted on trains. I nearly fainted on the tube twice last year. I've had to have awkward conversations with sexual partners. The guilt of feeling like I've lied, that baldness would scare them away when they put their hands through my hair and feel the mesh. But I'm lucky. Yeah, I'm still lucky. I have a job. I can get credit. I found a solution. Lucky me. Real hair, I did never tell. But it comes at a price. So why am I telling you? Well, I'm here because someone has to talk about it. Trans people, we've always been targeted because of our hair. The tabloids, the TERFs. Oh, you're just a man in a bad wig, they say. You can spot a bad wig a mile off. I know. People have told me when they shouted across the street. Being noticed creates danger. Being clocked means being attacked, verbally or physically. That's the risk that we face. Trans people are more likely to be unemployed, thus more likely to be poor. Synthetic hair is cheaper, but it dries out so fast you can spot it a mile off, or maybe I can, because it ends up looking like straw. It's hot, it's uncomfortable, and if it's not stuck down, you better stay out of the wind. There are loads of times when I've had to literally hold on to my hair. Who would want a lifetime of that? The fear of being clocked, the fear of being found out by your partners or friends. It's nice to get compliments, but we know it's a lie really deep down. Who wants a lifetime of that? 20, 30, 40 years? I'm 10 years in and I'm already thinking about the future. Hair today, gone tomorrow after all. That's what they say. I actually miss the cool breeze on my scalp as I'm running long distance or sweating in a crowded dance floor. Being bald isn't all that bad. I say I quite like it, some of the time. And hair doesn't change who I am. Sure, it's fine and feminine and it's fun and I like it, but not all the time. Sometimes it's a bind. And what about cis women? One of my friends went bald through alopecia. We know the effects of cancer that can cause hair loss. And I've seen that firsthand. I've seen how upset that some women are when they lose their femininity. But are those women, those heroic survivors, any less woman because they don't have hair? Of course not. And I'm a survivor too. Trans women are strong. We live our lives under scrutiny. Hair doesn't define me. I'm still a woman. Wearing my hair is for you, not for me, most of the time. Walking the streets as a trans woman makes me more visible. It ups the risk. There are places I know people would look twice and tongues would wag. Am I really ready for that battle? Haven't I had enough? I'd say I'm not ready. Not yet. But I am ready to talk about it. To open up the possibility of a different future. During this lockdown, I posted a picture of me on Instagram. Bald and proud. Just to start a conversation. Why are we hiding? Are we perpetuating gender stereotypes? Do we want to live like that? No. We want to dismantle them, not uphold them. Sure, love your hair. Love your hair pieces. Whatever makes you happy. But let's create a space for the alternative. Younger trans women have more choice. Society is becoming more accepting in the main of trans people. Engagement with gender identity services are increasing, and trans people are coming forward earlier and younger. And for those accepting hormones, they're less likely to suffer hair loss. But youth is a privilege. Let's not forget the older trans women, the late transitioners. Passing it is a privilege, and the later you transition, the harder it is to pass. Being older and visible, the pressure is on. If we want trans equality and acceptance, we all need to be safe. I should be able to express my gender however I choose and still be respected. Are we there yet? No, of course not. We're nowhere near there yet. One day, I won't have the money to pay for my hair. When I'm retired and I'm without the income, when I'm on a pension. And don't forget, I've been lucky enough to work with a pension. I worry about growing old, being bald, and maybe in a care home not designed for people like me. Do you really think trans people are respected in later life care? Because I'm not so sure. So yeah, I'm telling my story to be part of the conversation. That conversation to dismantle the stereotypes. I am a woman, and I'm a bold trans woman.
I apologise in advance if you have heard this story before. I know I like to go on about it. But if you can't be excited about hard-fought major body changes, then what can you be excited about? I have what you could call a slightly unorthodox long-term plan for my medical transition around my chest. I've always wanted top surgery. Always had pretty solid dysphoria when it's come to my chest. But I've also always been a sucker for the aesthetic, so it won't be done for me once I wake up and it's all flat. Well, as flat as it would be for someone as comfortably thick as me, shall we say. About a year after the procedure, once I have the gnarly scars and they've healed down nicely, I plan to get a huge tattoo right on top of them. It will go over the chest and on top of the right shoulder, down to the elbow in one big collage, made up of literary and movie references and all held up by elves and pixies and imps. Then, I plan to get 2 of the most colossal nipple rings known to humanity. Big enough that they are visible no matter how baggy the shirt. I like to jest that I'm getting them as handles so the pretty bottom I've picked up doesn't fall off mid-ride. But I digress. Then, during the summer, I will wear open button-up short sleeve shirts on a similar style level as Guy Fieri. Classic rockabilly on a charity shop budget sort of thing. And I will sit in the sun in my backyard with a fat bacon double cheeseburger. So when I take the first bite, a hefty dollop of barbecue sauce falls directly on the flat, tattooed, pierced titties. And that is the dream right there. At least for me. It isn't really something you can say to the GIC when they ask you, what are your long-term goals around top surgery? But it is honest.
I heard someone say that the ocean is queer. I loved it. And over time, it became clear that this was something I hadn't needed to hear, because it's been so long resident in my truth. It's the clamouring inside me, a vigilant passion that I won't deny me because it feels fresh. That energy that you walk with on stage, that power with which you talk, you debate, this potent aura of slick sweat and glitter that clings to the features of every eager face around me. Come surround me, I see no trauma here. Yes, it has helped to shape my fears, but in this etheric salted spray, I have no need for it. When we crash down, it's the rock that will move to reform, resplendently erode to adorn our fringes. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do our own oceans, and I liked the mystery, but I like being respected more. I like it when we can educate and represent and show that there's no cause for alarm, that I'm not here harbouring harm, I'm just waiting for open arms. And it's okay, I'll wait. And over time, I see that I'm brave. I realise that there's no final destination per se, but that I am brave. Each day, I choose to put the plasters on my own knees, from the scrapes and the falls, from bouncing off of walls that I'm still learning to see. Because this queer sea that I see, it's a cosmic womb for life to be. To rupture, collaborate, be key, essential in harmony, and yet we would stop that. Bleached coral bones and plastic bottled stones play dominoes in that arena, and I'm in ours. I've got the tears and the dust smeared over scars to prove it, but I will watch as the waters return, soothing the burns of a world searching for solidarity. What would I give if I could just live out of these waters? What would I pay to spend the day to see my family again and say, I still love you? I bet in that land they understand that they don't need to have that conversation, but we do. So let's have it here. Let's override these fears. I might not always be able to say that I need you, so ask me. And when my privilege can aid you, I know I'll know what to do. I'm ready to task me with it, because together, from what I've seen, together, we are pretty fucking glorious.
Hello, my name's Eli. I'm the trans guy who did a gender studies course at uni and didn't realise he was transgender. I want to talk to you today about pleasure. I've been considering pleasure a lot recently as I've tried to decide whether or not to go ahead with lower surgery. Irrespective of gender and sexuality, as a society we still tend to identify sex acts in binary terms, with the masculine being the active and the feminine being the passive. I think this is very damaging as it discourages queer sex and limits people's ability to engage with their own pleasure. I personally feel more comfortable in an active role, which makes sense to me because a lot of trans people can feel disassociated or at least ambivalent about their own genitalia. I've never had any difficulty satisfying a partner, but once I started to identify as male, I felt a sudden expectation that I should have a penis, and that the ways I'd been having sex prior to my transition were somehow not enough. This made me realise how easy it is to be drawn into a binary way of thinking, and as I've got further into my transition and passed more as a cis male, it's actually become harder to resist the expectations that society has of my body. I'm never going to cover the myriad theories about the phallus in 2 minutes, but needless to say I began to internalise the patriarchal idealisation of the phallus. For a lot of trans guys, a penis is something that for many reasons they feel that they can't live without, and I have the utmost respect for their courage in going through what they have to in order to feel complete. It's a complex decision because in addition to the physical trauma of numerous surgeries, there's also the risk of losing sensation from nerve damage. For me personally, top surgery was something that I always felt I needed, but lower surgery was not. I believe that a large part of sexual pleasure is about how you think about yourself and your own body and how you engage with others. Having said that, you can't ignore the significance of physical pleasure, and I personally am not prepared to risk losing my own sexual pleasure in order to achieve the concept of the masculine ideal that society has created. I'd rather keep the sensation and maintain the physique of a Ken doll with hairless pecs and a smooth area down below.
Sexuality is a hard one for me because I don't know if I know it's a thing, but I don't know if I believe in it. Like, I'm attracted to men, women. The thing that attracts me most is a sense of dominance, a butch mask. But obviously you can have masked women, so just, somebody with a gentleman.
I went to my choir rehearsal last week, and unfortunately in the rush to have a quick wee before we resumed the singing, mine fell out of my pants and into the toilet. That was not a good packer moment either. So yeah, they kind of break, they disintegrate, they fall down your leg. I've bought 5 so far and they're not cheap. Yeah, anyway, so that's Packers. Have a good night.
So being in lockdown is really difficult when you're an artist, because when what you do is very visual and you want to get out there and meet people and showcase what it is that you do, it quickly goes away the moment you're in a position where you can't leave the house. And it was a big hit for me to start off with, because I'd just written my book, Tainted Beauty. I was really, really proud of it. It'd been out for a few months. I was working on promoting it and getting out there. And also, I was really, really keen and excited to open myself up to a more creative avenue, which is performing, because I had gone through such a tough time in 2019 when it came to realizing just how I really wanted to showcase what I do and embrace being a queer person of color, but not having anywhere to show that, because I had gone through my transition over a decade ago. And although I came out the other side a really strong person, I was really weak in the friend department. I didn't have any friends who were queer people of color. It was really difficult for me to engage and inject myself back into a community that had grown up around me, but I was still very much a part of. So I wanted to embrace a side of myself that I had almost neglected for a long time because I was so focused on other things. So when I started performing, I did my very first performance at a horror cabaret show called Glitterfy at Deansgate. And this was in Christmas of 2019. And it was an amazing experience because that was the first time I had showcased being a bully witch, which is something that has now grown into an amazing part of myself. And the show went really well. And that's when I thought, great, things are going to take off. I'm going to be able to enter this different avenue of performance and really showcase what I'm capable of. But then when the lockdown happened, I was really worried because to begin with, I was already struggling with finding gigs because no one wanted to really book a queer person of color who did performances that weren't even in English. But when the lockdown happened, I was like, great, what am I supposed to do now? Like, I have no idea what to do. But a really, really great thing happened, which was when I started creating online content, a lot of the drag shows that went from being in bars and clubs to being online started to notice me and started getting in touch, started embracing what I did and wanted me to be a part of their shows. And it gave me an avenue that really gave me the opportunity to show people what I do. So me being a bully witch has really grown during lockdown in a way that I don't think it actually would have if this didn't happen. And although I wouldn't want anyone to go through this kind of lockdown and everything like that, I am seeing a positive side to what's happening, which is me taking the opportunities that are coming up and creating amazing content and getting involved with amazing people so then I can show what I do. Because not only am I a writer, I am a performer and I've always been a performer, but I've never engaged in it until now. And I don't really care that I didn't do it years ago in my 20s. It doesn't matter about that. What matters is that you can do whatever you want here and now if you want to do it. And it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. There's always ways of channeling what you do and putting it out into the world. And with what I do as a writer, as a performer, as a bully witch, all of that encompasses who I am. And I'm always in a position to show that to the world. And with what I'm doing right now, it's really, really encouraging and inspiring to myself to kind of basically remind myself that you're capable of some amazing-ish. You can really, really create some amazing energy and put it out into the world and have it received so well, regardless of whether you're stuck in the house or whether you're in a club or you're doing a book reading. Just keep doing what you do, and that's all that matters, and everything else will happen organically.
So I know when the Black Lives Matter movement started, some of the conversation did start to come to surface, but I think it's diluted because sometimes I assume that sometimes maybe there's a discomfort there as well. It's like, well, I don't know, man. People are really dying out here, and I mean, it's like who's paying more. We don't want to get into a competition of who's paying more. We also don't want to deflect from the situation. We don't want to deflect and say no. We're not saying we don't want to fight for that. It's almost like it feels like a separate conversation, but in the recruiting, in the process of attempting to recruit people from an ostracized community, it's kind of like, well, I don't know, you're the same people that try to kill us, so why would we come with you? It's kind of that dance, like it's almost like you have to convince us to come and join. So I don't know, I don't know. It's a bit hit or miss. I know if it boiled down to it, a lot of us will definitely be on the front line if it boiled down to it, and then deal with the conversation of do you like us at the end of it, because right now this takes precedence. But it's just I think it hits a certain way when I hear narratives that you're being silent, you're not using your platform, yada yada yada, and you're looking to the same people that I guess the same bunch of people you keep taking, and that can be a painful experience. And sometimes we just need a hug as well. Black trans lives matter. 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 Black trans lives matter.
Yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I've got more things, but I feel like I'm not very good at talking about myself. I feel like I'm always one of those where you have to ask to get. I've had quite a turbulent life. I've been through a lot of crazy experiences, which I'm more than happy to share. I just need to know if it's what you want to hear. But I hope that helps.